Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 27b, top of the page, with the words Umishnatenu k'divrei ha'omer lo ya'asfenu. And our Mishnah is in accordance with the statement of the one who says he may not gather it up. Rav Chizda Amar Avimi Hakol moedim benitanim למטה שנתנן למעלה שלא יאספנו וכל שאין בניתנין למעלה שנתנן למטה הוי ודם העליונים למטה הן והן לא נחלקו אלא בניתנין לפנים שנתנן בחוץ שנתנן לפנים Reb Yossi Omer Ya'asfenu, Reb Shimon Omer Lo Ya'asfenu. And Rav Chizda says that Avimi says everyone concedes with regard to the blood that it is to be placed below the red line, that if one places it above the red line, he may not gather it up again. And all the more so with regard to the blood that is to be placed above the red line, that one placed below the red line, since the blood placed above the red line will eventually run down the side of the altar and reach below the red line. They disagree only with regard to the blood that is to be placed inside the sanctuary, that one placed outside on the external altar, or blood that is to be placed outside, that one placed inside. As Rabbi Yossi says, he may gather it up as though it had spilled on the floor. And Rabbi Shimon says he may not gather it up because the blood was nevertheless placed on the altar. Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Afana nami tanina Bar Yehuda omer zosi ha'ola Hare elu mi'utin prat lenishchata בלילה ושנשפך דמה שיצא דמה חוץ לקלעים אם עלתה תרד. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says we learn in a Braita we learn in a Braita as well that if the blood is misplaced on the altar it may not be gathered, in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yehuda says that the verse states, this is the law of the burnt offering. It is that which goes up on the pyre upon the altar, Leviticus 6:2, from which it is derived that a disqualified offering that ascended upon the altar shall not descend from it. These terms, meaning this, it, and that, are three terms of exclusion which serve to exclude three cases of disqualified offerings from this halacha. An offering that was slaughtered at night, one whose blood was spilled, and one whose blood emerged outside the curtains. The temple court, meaning the temple courtyard, in these cases, even if the offering ascended upon the altar, it shall descend. Rabbi Shimon Omer, Ola, Eli Ela Ola, Keshecha, Minan Rabbi Shinishchata Valada V'nishpach Dama, Yaz Dama Chutz HaKlaim, B'halan Yotzet V'tama Shinishchata Chutz Zmano, V'chutz Lemikomo, ושקיבלו פסולים וזרקו את דמה והניתונים למעלה שנתן למטה והניתונים למטה שנתן למעלה והניתונים בפנים שנתנן בחוץ והניתנים בחוץ כשנתן בפנים והפסח והחטאת ששחטן שלא נשמע מן העין. Rabbi Shimon says, from the term burnt offering, although I have derived only that a fit burnt offering shall not descend From where is it derived that the halacha includes an offering that was slaughtered at night, or one whose blood was spilled, or one whose blood emerged outside the curtains, or one that was left overnight, or one that left the courtyard, or one that became impure, or one that was slaughtered was intent to consume it beyond the designated time, or outside its designated area, or an offering for which an unfit person collected and sprinkled its blood, or a case where one placed the blood that is to be placed above the red line below it, or where one placed the blood that is to be placed below the red line above it, or where one placed the blood that is to be placed inside the sanctuary on the external altar, or where one placed the blood that is to be placed outside the sanctuary inside it, or a paschal offering or a sin offering that one slaughtered, not for their sake. From where is it derived that if these offerings ascended, that they shall not descend? Talmud Lomar Torah Ta'ula Riba Torah Achas L'chol ha'olin she'im alu lo yardu. The verse states the law of the burnt offering, literally that which goes up. The verse included under one law all items that ascend upon the altar, teaching that if they ascended the altar, they shall not descend. Yachol shani malvia afharovia yanir v'mokse et nan. One might have thought that I should include even an animal that copulated with a person, or an animal that was the object of bestiality, or an animal that was set aside for idol worship, or an animal that was worshipped as a deity, or an animal that was given as payment to a prostitute, or the price of a dog, or an animal born of a mixture of diverse kinds, or an animal that is a treifa, or an animal that is born of cesarean section. The verse therefore states this to exclude these animals from the halacha. The Gemara asks, and what did you see as the reason to include the former cases and to exclude the latter ones? The Gemara responds, I include these former cases, those disqualification, whose disqualification occurred in sanctity, meaning in the course of the temple service. And I exclude these latter cases whose disqualification did not occur in sanctity and were disqualified as offerings from the outset. Katani miha. Hanitan Namata Shinatsan Namala Namata Pilapa Yehuda my time Lamishun de Kalte Mizbeach Shmamina Leisapel. Nachman Rizcha continues. In any event, the Bride teaches that if one placed the blood that is to be placed below the red line above it, or if one placed the blood that is to be placed above the red line below it, the offering does not descend from the altar. And Yehuda does not disagree, even though he holds that if the blood spilled on the ground, the offering descends from the altar. The offering descends from the altar. What is the reason for this? Is it not because even if the blood was misapplied, the altar has absorbed the blood, and it is not considered to have been spilled on the floor? Conclude from it that if the blood was misapplied on the altar, the priest may not gather up again, according to the statement of Rabbi Yochanan. Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. Pursuant to the discussion of disqualified offerings that do not descend from the external altar, Rabbi Eliezer says the inner altar, meaning the golden altar inside the sanctuary, sanctifies disqualified offerings such that if they ascended onto it, they do not descend. My Kamash Belon. The Gemara asks, what is this statement teaching us? We already learned this in the above Braita. If one placed the blood that is to be placed inside the sanctuary, outside on the external altar, or if one placed the blood that is to be placed outside the sanctuary inside it, on the golden altar, the offering does not descend. Your response: if one were to learn the halakha only from there, I would say this matter applies only to blood mistakenly placed on the golden altar, as it is fit to be placed on that altar in certain contexts, meaning the blood of the bull and the goat, sin offerings of Yom Kippur. But with regard to a handful from a meal offering, which is not fit to be placed on the golden altar, in any context, I will say that it is not sanctified when placed on it. Eliezer therefore teaches us that even a handful from a meal offering does not descend from it. Also, the Mizbeach Teri she'ein lecha mekadosh pesulin elam Mizbeach chiton b'roi loi chiton ein pnimi lo. The Gemara raises a rejection from a Braita. If strange incense, being incense that is prohibited to burn on the golden altar, ascended onto the altar, it shall descend, as only the external altar sanctifies disqualified offerings that are suited for it. What one can infer that the external altar does sanctify disqualified offerings, but the inner altar does not. Taretachi Ketore Zara shows the Mizbeach Yitzon Tered she'ein Mizbeach Yitzon Mekadesh Pesulin Ela Haroi Lo Ve'avenimi Ben Roi Lo Ben she'ein Roi Lo My Taiba Hai Ritzbab High Kli Sharis. The Gemara responds, answer like this: the Braita means that if strange incense ascended onto the external altar, it shall descend, as the external altar sanctifies only disqualified offerings that are suited for it. But the inner altar sanctifies everything, whether it is suited for it or it is not suited for it. What is the reason for this? The external affair is considered part of the floor, since it is fixed to the floor of the temple, and that the inner altar is considered a service vessel with a higher level of sanctity. That's it for the Talmud there, starting a new Mishnah. New Mishnah. Shochet zevach l'zorek damai b'chutz o miktas damo b'chutz להקטיר אמורה בחוץ או מקטס אמורה בחוץ לאכול בשרו בחוץ או כזייס מבשרו בחוץ או לאכל כזייס or לעלייה בחוץ פסול ואין בו קרס. The Mishnah says, with regard to one who slaughters the offering with intent to sprinkle its blood outside the temple, or to sprinkle part of its blood outside the temple, to burn its sacrificial portions outside the temple, or to burn part of its sacrificial portions outside the temple, to partake of its meat outside the temple, or to partake of an olive bulk of its meat outside the temple, or to partake of an olive bulk of the skin of the tail outside the temple. In all of these cases, the offering is disqualified, and there is no liability for karet for one who partakes of it. Lizrok dami לזרוק דמו למחר, מקצת דמו למחר, להקטיר אמוריו למחר, או מקצת אמוריו למחר, לאכול בשרו למחר, כזייס מבשרו למחר, או לאכול כזייס מאור העלייה למחר, פיגור וחייב עליה הקודש. But if one had intent to sprinkle its blood on the next day, or part of its blood the next day, to burn its sacrificial portions the next day, or to burn part of its sacrificial portions the next day, to partake of its meat, and the next day to partake of an olive bulk of its meat the next day, or to partake of an olive bulk of the skin of the tail the next day, the offering is pigul, and one is liable to receive karet for burning or partaking of it. And that was the Mishnah. And now we start the Gemara. It's only 3 words. It's savrua or aliyah. The question is, the students assumed that the skin fell off the, I think it's the tail. Students assume that the skin of the tail, well, to be continued.